Hello, dear viewers. Before we dive into the heart of our story today, I invite you to find a quiet place where you can truly focus. The tale you're about to hear is more than just a story, it's a journey into the unseen layers of faith, power, and the essence of belief. This is a true story that has never been revealed until now, and I urge you to stick around until the very end. What follows might just change the way you perceive the world of miracles forever. Once upon a time, in a small village named Willow Creek, nestled between lush green hills and soaring forest, there stood a quaint gathering of homes. To the naked eye, Willow Creek seemed ordinary, but every Sunday morning, something extraordinary happened. People traveled far and wide, filling the narrow, winding roads with their cars and their voices, united in a shared purpose, to attend the Radiant Hope Ministry, led by the enigmatic Pastor Samuel Thompson. Young Oliver Thompson, a curious boy of 12, would watch from his bedroom window every Sunday morning, marveling at the vibrant parade that filled the streets. Women in radiant dresses, men sporting sharp suits, and children, groomed to perfection, all flocked to witness what they believed were divine miracles. Oliver would sit, counting the cars as they rode in, amazed by how his father's ministry had evolved from a simple wooden structure to a bustling place of worship. Pastor Samuel, affectionately known as the Miracle Maker among the townsfolk, had a reputation that preceded him. Each church service brought fresh accounts of astonishing transformations. The blind saw, crippled limbs regained warmth and strength, and the families of the poor suddenly found themselves with newfound wealth. The awe-inspiring stories captivated the hearts of many, but Oliver found an even greater fascination in the dichotomy of his father's character. At home, Pastor Samuel was a modest man. He often lost track of time in his study, consumed by thick volumes and old texts, frequently skipping meals until Oliver's mother, Abigail, urged him to eat. His wardrobe was made up of old sweaters patched in various places, and he would spend quiet afternoons tending to the garden, talking soothingly to the flowers. Yet, on Sundays, he transformed into an imposing figure in a crisp white suit, meticulously polished shoes that sparkled like the morning sun. Standing tall, he would often say, "Appearance matters, my son. People must see the glory of God reflected in our lives." Abigail Thompson was the ideal pastor's wife. Her voice led the congregation in song every Sunday, soaring high like an angel's melody, and their home was a sanctuary, always prepared for unexpected guests seeking counsel. Her unwavering smile, even amid fatigue, reminded Oliver of her resilience. "We must ever be ready to serve," she would remind him, straightening his tie before the service. "The work of God is never finished." From the outside, they appeared to be the perfect family, serving as paragons of virtue for the people of Willow Creek. Young mothers guided their children to admire Oliver, saying, "See how well-behaved he is." Fathers nudged their sons, proclaiming, "That boy is destined to walk in his father's footsteps." But Oliver, keenly observant, noticed pieces of their family life that others overlooked. It all began with peculiar late-night visitors to their home, arriving after Abigail retired for the night. They never entered through the front door but would slip in through the back, meeting quietly with Pastor Samuel in his study. Oliver would press his ear to the wall, trying to decipher the hushed conversations, but all he heard was the rustling of papers and occasionally the odd sound of chanting in an unfamiliar tongue. Then there were the unsettling objects Oliver discovered locked in a chest, dusty bones resembling human remains, feathers as dark as the night sky, vials filled with murky liquids, and stones etched with unsettling symbols that made his head spin. When Oliver's father caught him peeking inside, he quickly replied, "These are relics from my missionary journey, son. Educational tools to show the misguidance of false beliefs. Nothing more." But Oliver could see the fear in his father's eyes and the way his hands trembled as he shut the chest. Even the animals seemed to sense something unusual about Pastor Samuel. The neighborhood dogs would grow silent as he walked by, birds would hush their chirping, and even the stray cats, usually enticed by food scraps in the Thompsons' yard, would vanish at his approach. Yet, the miracles, they had to be real, right? Oliver had witnessed them firsthand. He remembered Mrs. Peterson, who had been blind for over a decade, suddenly exclaiming during a service that she could see again. How about Mr. Johnson, whose cancer vanished after Pastor Samuel laid hands on him? What about the day when money appeared to float down from the church ceiling as the congregation sang in joyful worship? This event ignited a flicker of hope in Oliver's heart, driving him to believe in his father's divinity. However, darkness seeped into his thoughts, manifesting as chilling nightmares. Night after night, he awoke to disconcerting sounds emerging from his father's study, scratching noises, whispers, and sometimes what seemed like cries of despair. One Sunday afternoon remained particularly etched in Oliver's memory. It was the peak of summer, and the church was overflowing with people. The air conditioning worked tirelessly to combat the heat as bodies swayed to the uplifting music led by Abigail's angelic voice. From the pulpit, Pastor Samuel appeared radiant in his white suit, a vision bathed in a heavenly glow. Brothers and sisters, he proclaimed in a voice powerful enough to rattle souls, "Today, God has shown me a vision, a great outpouring of miracles will flow like rivers." The congregation erupted in shouts of hallelujah, and praise filled the air. As Oliver nervously shifted in his front row seat, he watched his father move through the crowd, bestowing touches upon people who would fall backward, caught by eager congregants. Yet, later that day, something occurred that would haunt his dreams forever. A young mother approached, holding a fragile child born too soon. Pastor Samuel lifted the baby towards the heavens, praying fiercely, as Oliver felt an unsettling jolt when he caught a glimpse of his father's shadow against the wall. For a fleeting moment, it appeared larger than life, twisted and menacing, with horns protruding from its head. In that grisly flicker, Oliver could have sworn his father's eyes shifted to black. Later that night, he heard retching sounds coming from the restroom. Peering cautiously through the crack in his parents' bedroom door, he heard Abigail asking, "How much longer, Samuel? How much more must it take?" To which Pastor Samuel replied, his voice weary, "As long as it takes. We've come too far to turn back now." Resting in bed, Oliver couldn't escape the chaos swirling in his mind. He was convinced his father was a man of God, the miracles were genuine. But why did it feel like a shadow lurked beneath, waiting patiently to seize control? At school, Oliver found himself in an uncomfortable position. The pastor's son title set him apart from his classmates. Teachers held him to higher standards, and other children either stayed away or tried too hard to befriend him, hoping to tap into his father's blessings. Only Mira, a quiet girl from his math class, treated him like a normal kid. One day, over lunch, she leaned closer and said, "My grandmother says not all that glitters is gold. Some miracles have a price." Oliver wanted to probe her for explanations, but the lunch bell rang, and their moment slipped away. Yet, like an echo, her words stayed in his mind, bouncing back again and again. As his 15th birthday neared, the changes in his father became increasingly alarming. Pastor Samuel now spent more time barricaded in his study, sometimes not emerging for days. Abigail would leave meals at the door, and Oliver could hear odd rhythms of chanting rolling out, twisting around the midnight air. The miracles became more elaborate. They weren't just healings, they were feats of supernatural exploits. People began to claim that Pastor Samuel had the ability to conjure wealth, cure intractable diseases, and even bring back the dead. Church attendance swelled, which only fueled Oliver's concern. Each miraculous event drained the life from his father, he was becoming a shadow of his former self. The hustle and bustle of ministry cloaked the reality. Pastor Samuel's hands began to shake, and his once vibrant figure was now thin, pale, and weary, revealing dark rings under his eyes that makeup could no longer hide. Despite all of this, believers continued to flood into Willow Creek, driven by desperation and hope, ready to exchange their possessions for the pastor's power, their last coins, jewelry, even their homes, all in hopes of receiving Pastor Samuel's prayers. "It's God's will," Samuel would affirm with a strained smile when Oliver confronted him about these transactions. "They give with faith, and God rewards faith." Yet, Oliver noticed that met his gaze when he spoke those words. Then came the defining night when everything unraveled. Restless and unable to sleep, Oliver decided to follow Pastor Samuel as he heard him moving in the hallway late at night, making his way to the forest at the edge of Willow Creek. The air outside was stifling, and the red glow of the moon cast odd shapes across the ground. Pastor Samuel darted between the trees, a mysterious bag tucked tightly under his arm, cloaked in black attire unlike his usual white suit. Heart racing, Oliver followed cautiously, the sounds of the usual nocturnal wildlife eerily absent. As they reached a secluded clearing, Oliver hid behind a bush. The scene before him was nightmarish. Pastor Samuel was drawing intricate symbols in the dirt with a skill born from familiarity. He worked diligently, singing and reciting something in that strange language while pulling out unsettling items from his bag, human-like bones, black handles, vials filled with dark liquids, and what appeared horrifyingly like a freshly severed heart. "Master," Pastor Samuel pleaded, his voice desperate and trembling, "I've brought what you asked. Please, I need more power. The people demand greater miracles now." In that moment, as shadows twisted and lengthened around him, Oliver felt a chill race down his spine. Out of nowhere, a dark specter began to materialize, a figure with glimmering eyes like molten lava, towering grotesquely over his father. "Oh, my faithful servant. Always do eager for more power. But tell me, have you brought what I asked for? I need your son." Oliver gasped, realizing the horror that was unfurling before him as Pastor Samuel barely hesitated. Yes. He's young and pure. His spirit could grant you immense strength." Panic surged through Oliver. His father was willing to trade away his very soul for the mirage of power. "No!" Oliver cried out, stepping from his hiding place. The words hung in the air, thick with dread. Pastor Samuel's eyes widened in shock and fear. "Oliver, get back. This doesn't concern you." But Oliver stood his ground, tears spilling from his eyes. "You can't sell my future. You're doing this for more fake miracles, for a false god." "Clever boy," the dark figure smirked, scrutinizing Oliver with an unsettling gaze. "You see what your father truly is, don't you?" Thomas felt paralyzed. Where was the strength that usually accompanied him? The dark figure continued, "Your father has been mine for years. Each miracle, every healing, cost a piece of his soul, a price he willingly paid for power, yet he has run low. Understand this, if you refuse this bargain, the consequences shall be severe." "I choose the truth," Oliver exclaimed, standing tall against the alluring darkness. But the figure's laughter shook the woodlands. "Very well, my dear boy. Perhaps observing your father's final reckoning will change your mind." The crimson moon loomed overhead as the shadowy entity advanced upon Pastor Samuel, who knelt in the dirt, stripped of his grandeur, a mere shell of the man commanding the sanctuary each Sunday morning. "No! Stop this!" Oliver cried, desperate to intervene. "You wish to wield power, Samuel. Did you think there was no cost?" Pastor Samuel screamed, his form twisting and contorting as 15 years of accumulated dark magic began unraveling him bit by bit. His once proud visage cracked open like a parched landscape in the heat of summer. Oliver couldn't take it anymore. "Why, Dad? Why did you do this?" "I wanted to protect you," was all Samuel managed to whisper, remorse leaking into the strains of his voice. "Yet in my folly, I've lost everything." But Oliver wasn't listening anymore. He was frozen, reflecting and emulating the decisions of light and dark. A powerful force began to awaken within him. He possessed the potential his father desperately sought to contain. He was the bridge between both realms. Rising fear gripped Oliver's heart as the darkness coalesced around Pastor Samuel, and shadows invaded his mind. An idea struck him: could he reclaim his father's destiny? Inviting the light and shadows to unify within him, he found his voice: "You will not claim him." The shadows recoiled as he called upon the ancient words his mother had whispered in times of confusion and fear. In that moment, Oliver understood. He wasn't merely a pawn of fate, he was the possibility and potential of the garden, the sacred space where light and darkness thrived in harmony. "I stand against you," Oliver declared, light casting forth from his being, illuminating the forest clearing like never before. The darkness shrieked, thrashing in rebellion. "You shall not take my father, nor silence his story." That moment marked a turning point, where everything shifted toward light, a push against immovable darkness. Though shadows remained present, they dimmed against the brilliance of his unified core. As the creature faltered, Oliver broke the binds of despair and darkness with determination, saying, "I will forge my own path." And just like that, Oliver stepped forward, embracing his true self, not just as a son but as a guardian of sacred balance. The chains that bound his father shattered, releasing both the man and the shadows as pure light connected with the essence of twilight. And so, dear viewers, as you reflect on this tale, consider the significance of balance, between light and dark, between faith and doubt, between suffering and healing. In every shadow, light flickers, in every miracle, a price is bound. As we part ways today, ask yourself, in your journey through life, are you forging your own path, or drifting blindly in someone else's shadow? Thank you for joining me today. May your heart find its balance as you continue to navigate your own garden of miracles.